He didn't chase headlines, he didn't crave applause, and he never needed a nickname. They called him Captain Marvel, but he was never interested in the name. He was interested in the shirt. Because Bryan Robson didn't lead with words. He led with pain, with taped up ribs and torn ligaments, with knees that screamed, and a heart that wouldn't stop. He was the man who played through broken bones, the man who tackled giants and then stood up to lead them. For Manchester United, for England, he carried more than just the armband. He carried expectations, he carried pressure, and when everything around him broke, he kept going. You won't find many highlight reels, no tricks, no showboating, just a man sprinting back into danger again and again and again. Subscribe if you believe football shouldn't forget the warriors who gave everything, even when the world gave them nothing. Bryan Robson wasn't built to shine. He was built to survive, to carry teams that had no right to compete and make them believe they could win. And even when fate tried to silence him, he kept showing up. Before the lights, before Old Trafford, before the armband weighed like steel across his sleeve, there was County Durham. January 11th, 1957. Born in Chester Street, a coal mining town carved out of cold mornings and hard hands. His father worked down the pits, his mother held the home together. And Bryan? He kicked a ball through streets filled with grit, where football wasn't a dream. It was a fight. There were no agents, no social media, only mud, winter, and the will to keep chasing something better. At 15, he joined West Bromwich Albion's youth setup. Not because he was the most gifted, but because he was the hardest to stop. He didn't glide, he charged, didn't coast, he crashed in, and even then, coaches said it. He's got something inside him, fire, hunger. He plays like the game owes him nothing. By 1975, he made his professional debut under Don Howe, and he never looked back. 198 league appearances, 40 goals. But stats weren't what made people watch. It was the way he captained West Brom, leading with fists clenched and eyes sharp. The way he made 50-50s look like 80-20 in his favor. The way he turned matches not with magic, but with momentum. By the early 80s, everyone in English football knew Bryan Robson wasn't just good, he was relentless. And then, the Giants came knocking. October 1981. Ron Atkinson signed him for a British record £1.5 million, the most money ever spent on an English player at the time. But the price didn't weigh him down. It never could. Because Bryan Robson didn't walk into Manchester United to be expensive. He came to be essential. By 1982, he was wearing the captain's armband, and for the next 12 years, he never let go. 461 appearances, 99 goals, from midfield. In an era when midfielders didn't score like that. He wasn't just United's engine, he was the chassis, the suspension, the fire under the bonnet. He carried the club through storms, years of mediocrity, near misses, false dawns, managerial changes, doubters in the press, fans on the edge. But Robson never blinked. And in the 1983 FA Cup final replay against Brighton, when everything was on the line, he scored twice. Dragged United to a 4-0 win. He didn't just win it, he dragged them over the line. Then came more. FA Cup wins in 1983, 1985, 1990, Cup Winners' Cup in 1991, and the UEFA Super Cup that followed. And finally, after carrying the club on his back for over a decade, he was rewarded. 1992 to 93. The inaugural Premier League season. Robson, at 36, stood tall with a medal around his neck. He had bled for that title. Not in a single season, but across 13 years of giving everything to a club that needed a spine. And through it all, he never chased headlines. He chased tackles. He chased lost causes. He chased team glory over personal fame. Sir Alex Ferguson said it plain. Bryan Robson was the best captain I ever had. He wasn't just a Manchester United hero. he was England's warrior too. 90 caps, 26 goals, and most of all, 65 times he wore the captain's armband for his country. More than most, trusted more than many. Because when you needed someone to lead you into battle, you called Bryan Robson. And in 1982, he answered. World Cup, Spain, England versus France. 27 seconds in, Robson slammed the ball into the net. Still one of the fastest World Cup goals in history. He wasn't there to participate, he was there to dominate. But then, the body began to betray the heart. In 1986, Robson dislocated his shoulder against Morocco. Gone, just as England was rising. He watched the team fall short without him. In 1990, it happened again, this time before the tournament even started. He missed England's greatest World Cup run since '66. Semi-final heartbreak, and Robson wasn't on the pitch. Twice, England had a chance at history. Twice, their captain was stuck in a tracksuit, watching, wounded, powerless. He could carry a team, but he couldn't stop a shoulder from slipping. They called him Captain Marvel, but even heroes have limits. And Robson's limit was never his courage. It was a body that wouldn't let him finish the fight. Bryan Robson wasn't made of steel, but he played like he was forged in it. There's no stat for injections, no highlight reel for strapping a shoulder that won't stay in place, no camera catches what happens in the physio room before kickoff, or in the silence after a game when the adrenaline fades and the pain comes back. Shoulder tears, rib fractures, knee surgeries. Some players miss seasons with that list. Robson missed games, then came back swinging. He played through agony, not because he had to, but because he couldn't imagine not showing up. He was the type who'd take an injection at noon, play 90 minutes, and be back in the ice bath by 5. He never let the team feel the weight of his pain. He carried it alone. And when fans sang his name, he never told them what it cost. He stitched himself up just to keep the badge on his chest. He didn't wear the armband for attention. He wore it to protect the ones behind him, to lead from the front, to bleed first, so others didn't have to. That's why his teammates followed him. That's why managers trusted him. Not because he was the loudest, but because he never walked away from the fight. When the boots came off, Bryan Robson didn't disappear. He took everything he knew, the grit, the pain, the pride, and walked into the dugout. In 1994, he became player manager at Middlesbrough. It wasn't a headline move, it was a mission. And in his first full season, he delivered promotion to the Premier League in 1995. Back then, it was a fortress built on fight. Robson made sure of that. But he didn't just bring results, he brought belief. He signed names that didn't belong in the Northeast: Juninho, Ravanelli, Emerson, stars who dazzled. But behind the style, it was Robson's substance holding it together. In 1997, he led Boro to 2 major cup finals, FA Cup, League Cup. And though they didn't lift silver, they made the country take notice. Later came Bradford City, then West Bromwich Albion, where in 2004-05, he pulled off one of the greatest escapes in Premier League history. Bottom at Christmas, safe by May. Only Robson could have pulled that off. But the second act never matched the first. Not because he lacked the fire, but because some legends are forged in combat, not strategy. He walked away from management with no bitterness, no farewell tour, no desperate comeback, because he'd already given the best of himself, where it mattered most. In 2011, long after the roar of the crowd had faded, Bryan Robson faced a different kind of opponent: throat cancer, diagnosed quietly while on a visit to Thailand. No headlines, no public statement. Just the same instinct that had carried him through decades of football. Fight. He didn't call the press. He didn't ask for sympathy. He did what he always did, went into the challenge alone, gritted his teeth, and battled through the pain. Treatment was brutal. But Robson never flinched. And just like those games where he limped through 90 minutes, he came out the other side still standing. Because that's who he was, Even when the body failed, the spirit refused to. Today, you'll still see him at Old Trafford, shaking hands, signing shirts, posing for photos with fans too young to know what he gave, but old enough to feel his presence. At 68, he's more than an ambassador. He's a living echo of what football used to be, not flashy, not loud, just loyal, just present, just Bryan Robson, the man who never stopped showing up. There's no statue outside Old Trafford, no mural on the Stretford end, no Netflix documentary, no chant echoing from the terraces, just silence. Modern fans talk of Keane, Vieira, Gerrard, Lampard, but before any of them, there was Robson. Before the Premier League had a theme song, before boot deals and broadcast deals, Bryan Robson was out there, taking tackles that would end careers today and getting back up without a word. He didn't have branding, he had bandages, he didn't chase fame. He chased lost causes and turned them into victories. But the game moved on. New stars arrived, new voices took over the commentary, and slowly, quietly, his name faded from the conversation. He didn't win the World Cup, but he made England believe it could. He didn't play for YouTube clips, he played for teammates who trusted him. Ask the fans who watched him, they'll tell you. He wasn't just a player, he was the reason they believed. And if the headlines forget him, then it's up to us to remember. Because legends don't need noise, they just need truth. He wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the flashiest, he wasn't made for highlights or headlines. But when football needed someone to carry the weight, Bryan Robson was always there. He carried clubs, he carried England, he carried injuries, he carried silence. And still, he never dropped the armband. He didn't chase records, he set the standard. A standard built on pain, on grit, on showing up when no one else would. Robson didn't ask for recognition, he never demanded legacy. But that's exactly why he deserves one. Because in a world that forgets fast, he moved slow, deliberate, tough, endless. The captain who played hurt and never stopped fighting. So if you believe football should remember the ones who gave everything, even when they got nothing in return, subscribe to keep that memory alive. Because Bryan Robson didn't play for the cameras, he played for the shirt. And in doing so, he became something more than a footballer. He became a warrior.